Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be playing a brand new game that came out, well, a couple of months ago now, actually in November, by Fury Software and published by Slitherine and Matrix Games. The game is Strategic Command World War II in Europe. This is a remake of, or at least the newest iteration in the Strategic Command series, which has been going for over 10 years now. It originally was published by the Battlefront people, who also published the combat mission games. And I have never actually given these games much of a go. I've seen them in passing, I've known about the games, but I've never really played them. And my only playing experience was around the time that the first combat mission game came out. I was on the Battlefront website quite a bit, and they had published a Strategic Command demo, and I believe it was Europe in Crisis, or it was basically just the World War II in Europe game, which this seems to be a new iteration of. And I played the demo a lot, which allowed you to play like through the invasion of Poland, but I never actually bought the game. It was something that I enjoyed, but it was also, it came out over 10 years ago. I think I was in high school at the time, and it might have been like 14 years ago. And I didn't have money to buy the game, so I played the demo quite a bit, but I never actually played the main game. Now, as you can see here, this is the menu screen. You can play as a single player, you can play multiplayer hot seat, which is a local multiplayer on the same system, and it looks like they're in the works of making an online component to the game, because you can see here there is a online option, but it is coming soon. And then your load options, your settings. Let's just make sure the music volume, sound volume, okay. So what we're going to do here, this is literally a first look or a first impressions video of Strategic Command. So we're going to play a single player game, and as you can see here, there's 6 campaigns to choose from. You can play 1944 D-Day to Berlin, and it recommends you play as the Allies. You can play Operation Citadel, which I have a horrible memory on what Citadel is, but I think that's the Battle of Kursk. Recommends you play as the Axis. You can play Case Blue, which is the attack on Stalingrad. You can play Operation Barbarossa, which, as it says, is the invasion of Russia. The attack on the West, which is the invasions of France and the Low Countries. And then Storm over Europe, which is the whole shebang, starting in 1939, September 1st, and allows you to play through to the entire war. Now, it's important to remember, these are not limited scenarios. These are start points. So basically, you start 1944, you start 1942, but it's not limited to that one operation. These are not limited scenarios as far as I can tell. So basically, it puts you in and you play the whole war. And that's why we're going to play the 1939 Storm over Europe. If we click on the victory button here, we'll see we've got some conditions for the Axis to win a decisive victory. They need to control Berlin, Rome, Warsaw, Paris, London, Moscow, Leningrad, Stalingrad, and Cairo. So basically, all the major capitals of all the European allies. Notice Washington, D.C. is excluded. And then also 3 major cities in Russia. So the capital, Leningrad, Stalingrad, and then you also need to take Cairo, which I assume is where the British Empire in exile will end up, or at the very least it gives you control of all of northern Africa, or it assumes that control. It gives you some additional information in the Europe Strategy Guide, the 1939 Storm over Europe Strategy Guide. The game references the strategy guide a few times. I haven't checked it out. It may be part of the initial, when you turn the game on, you've got this little mini menu to choose from. I assume it's there, but I haven't actually given that a look. But let's go ahead and play. We're going to play as the Axis. The early war game as the Allies, I think, would be a little bit frustrating, just kind of responding to crises. So we'll just go ahead and we'll play as the Axis powers, which right now that equals Germany and Italy. And apparently we can set individual countries. So like if we play as the Allies, we can set individual countries to be controlled by the AI, so we only control one of them, which is really interesting. I didn't know about that literally till I just clicked on it, which is kind of cool. If you want to play a more limited scope, if you just want to play as England, if you just want to play as the United States, you can do that by turning off the other countries and just playing as that one country. Or, for example, as the Axis, if you want to say, I don't want to be Mussolini, I just want to play as Germany. Or if you want to say, I don't want to be Hitler and I just want to play as Mussolini, you can do that. But we're going to play as both Axis powers. We'll leave the difficulty at intermediate. Looks like the game has a veteran and expert option, and then it has a novice and green option. So we'll play at the normal difficulty. I've never really, like I said, played the strategic command games, so we'll see how that plays out. There's also some bonuses to the computer to make it a little bit more challenging, so you can give them spotting bonuses, which I assume allows them to spot, less fog of war so they can make better decisions. You can also give them some experience perks and some income perks, or you can give them some income penalties, if you don't want them to be quite as powerful. MPP, again, I should know what that stands for. I've played this game about an hour, just kind of monkeying around and getting a handle of some of the basic components. Otherwise, as I said, this is very much a first look game. But MPP is essentially income. So income per turn, I assume it stands for like manpower production or material production or something like that. But for all intents and purposes, when I say income, that's what MPP is. We're going to leave all of these starting sliders set to just their normal levels. You get some options to control how the game is set up in terms of the borders, the way they look, the counter styles. You can see here, recommends these 3D counters. You can actually go with NATO symbols if you want. I think it's prettier to go with the counters. Some hardcore wargamers may want to play with the NATO counters. But anyway, we're going to play with just the default settings, everything here, and we're going to go ahead. There's some more advanced options, but I'm not going to play around with those. We'll just go ahead and end. So you can see here, 1939, storm over Europe. The game does have a little bit of a loading time on the initial setup and also for the first scenarios, or first turn. So when you play through the first turn, it does take a little bit to load from time to time. Okay, so you get a quick little war aim post. Basically, our most important enemy is Great Britain. Bring her down will be masters of Europe. We also need to deal with the Soviet Union. So at the end of the day, it's saying that Europe and England and the Soviet Union are our two principal enemies, and that is borne out in the decisive victory conditions, with needing to take London and Cairo, 2 objectives from England, and also needing to take 3 objectives from Russia, while only needing 1 from France and 1 from other countries. Okay, so as you can see here on the map, we have a map of Poland right now. This is Warsaw, the capital of Poland. You can see here, this is our first objective, playing as Germany. You can see here there's a national morale objective, NM objective, which I'll get to national morale in a minute. But basically, we're starting in 1939 on the eve of the German invasion of Poland. Everything's set up for that invasion. We don't have to do anything other than starting to attack. Which is easy enough to do, but we will hold off on that for a minute. So let's use the mouse wheel. We scroll out. We can see here we've got a grand map of all of Europe that we can click around on to zoom in and whatnot. But you can use the mouse wheel to zoom out. Your forces kind of pulsate a little bit. You can see here the German and the Italian forces. Hopefully you can tell they're kind of flashing a little bit. You've also got the enemy forces on the map here at a grand strategic level that are showing up, although they're not pulsating. You can see the Polish forces here in the east and the French forces here in the west. In addition to that, you've got all the different countries, and right now you can see what Germany possesses. As we take over more countries, this map will push east. As we lose forces, this map will push west, or vice versa for the Western Front. It basically just reflects the current situation. So that's kind of the grand strategic map. We'll use the mouse wheel to scroll back. Well, actually, why don't we just click here on Germany? And then we're kind of at a zoomed out stage, but we can zoom back in a little bit more using the mouse wheel. So that's basically the map. Now, there's some important items on this home screen, and this is one thing I think the game does very well. I think a lot of war games have a tendency to have way too many menus, way too many buttons to click on. It's just overwhelming, and it all looks like Windows 95. That is definitely not the case in this game. This game does a very good job of making everything very presentable and very usable. So, for example, if we go ahead and we click on, or we put our mouse over here on the top left, you can see Germany, 50 MPP. So Germany has 50 points of income, if you will. You can see on the left here, Germany. You can see on the left you've got a little German flag with the Iron Cross, and if you hold over it, it will say Germany has 100% mobilization, which impacts its ability to fight and resupply and other things like that. It has 100% national morale, 40% industrial modifier, and belligerent with Poland right now. So belligerent is who you're at war with. If we move the mouse down and scroll over Italy, you can see they're only 65% mobilized, and their national morale is 100%, their industrial modifiers are 50. I'm not quite sure what the percentage of mobilization does, other than, I believe it just kind of impacts your income and your ability to spend, because the game doesn't really allow you to play much in terms of civilian economy or anything like that. As far as I can tell, you don't build or adjust factories or anything like that. So mobilization is kind of a factor of how ready are you for war. If we go down here, we'll go ahead and click on Italy. You can see here now we've selected Italy and we've got 80 income in the bank, and we can kind of move around the map down here and select Italian units and move them around. Now this is a turn-based game, if you haven't gathered that already, where you move units around, you fight in very much kind of a traditional hex-based game. I don't want to say Panzer Corps, because this is not at all like Panzer Corps, but there are a couple of similarities, and I'll show you those right now. So if we go back to Germany, click on Germany here. You don't actually have to click. I just like seeing the flag in the upper right. So if we go back to Germany and we go to Eastern Prussia, here, this northern area, I'm just going to give you an example of how combat works. We'll go ahead and we'll click on this army unit, 3rd Army down here. And one thing is, pay attention to your counters, because you'll see here, these both look like infantry units, right? Well, one of them has 4 infantry guys on it. One of them has 3. That's because this is an army. This, on the other hand, is a corps. You can see here, this is the Woodrick Corps. An army is larger than a corps, as you can judge by the number of counters on there. A corps generally is something like 60 to 75,000 men. An army could be 180,000, could be 200,000 plus. So you can see here, this one's going to have a little bit more punch power. So if we right-click on it, and you get some tooltips that pop up. We go down to Properties, and you'll get some information about that unit. This unit is using infantry weapons 1, has no anti-aircraft defense, limited mobility. I guess it doesn't have any APCs or half-tracks or anything like that, which you can upgrade a unit to do. And then it has attack values, defense values, and general information. In addition, as you fight, you can win honors, which is just kind of representing a unit's historical success and experience and what have you. So if you want to fight, you click on a unit, left-click, and then you click on the hex you want it to go to, so you can see it uses movement points, and you've got some information down here on the bottom of the screen about the unit, strength, supply, action points, etc. So you can move here, takes 2, I believe, action points, and then we can still fight. Now, what's similar, as I mentioned, Panzer Corps, obviously it's a hex-based game, it's a turn-based game, so I mean, that's superficially similar, but if you hold your mouse over the unit you want to attack, it gives you a projected combat result. So in this case, it's projecting that the Polish will lose 3, as the number 3 by their little flag there, if you can see that. Hopefully it's not all that well delineated, but if you look at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see 3-1. And you'll see defense with that little sort of semicircle, and you'll see the offensive with the arrow down in the middle bottom of the screen. It also gives you some information about the Polish troops on the bottom right, the Modlin Army, their strength 8, supply 8, action points 3, strikes 1, readiness 6, morale 80, and all of that. So we go ahead and we click, and you get a little combat animation, and you get the results that happen, which are exactly as predicted. And that's basically how you fight. It's that simple. So if we want to click on an air unit, we go ahead and we click on the target we want to bomb, and oh, interceptors. So the Polish flew some interceptor fighters up to intercept our bombing raid that we were launching on this unit, and that can be sort of an unexpected modifier. So when you click on a unit that you want to fight, there can be other things that come up that kind of surprise you. In this case, the Stuka was bombing these infantry. The Polish had a fighter unit that was within range, and it intercepted, and you got that little pop-up. Now, we had a escorts pop-up because we've got a fighter unit right here that was able to, intercept the enemy fighters, and our bombers actually didn't lose anything to the fighters, although they lost a couple of strength to ground fire from the enemy infantry. And then you saw, the whole combat resolution take place. Now, one thing I think the game could do a little bit better job of is allowing me to go back and say, okay, wait, what just happened in that fight? I don't know, and I don't know if there's an area I can find out. Maybe if I click on reports? No. So there's not an area I can click and find out what just happened in that fight. It doesn't really easily tell me, as far as I can tell, anything about the engagement that just took place. So I think that would be nice. But otherwise, really simple. Click on a unit, click on the enemy you want to attack, and the attack occurs. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. We'll send these infantry over here. I hope you guys can hear me because the game volume is kind of loud. And there you have it. So that unit's almost dead. And then there's these other things called national morale objectives. So I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm just going to kind of continue fighting, if you will. Can I bomb these guys while they die? There you go. So that was an example. It projected 1 casualty for our bombers and none for the enemy, but actually in that case we destroyed the enemy and didn't lose anything ourselves. So that was a positive result. One other thing that you'll notice here is there are headquarters units, which it's not, again, entirely clear exactly what impact they have, but you can see these units are highlighted green. These units are under control of our headquarters. And I wonder if these little lines mean that they're out of effective range or something like that. So if I move them closer, it doesn't show anything. But anyway, so there are headquarters units which have modifiers on your unit's ability to fight effectively. I believe it has something to do with your readiness level and maybe your morale and supply. But there are headquarters units that you want to keep in close supply with your units to ensure that they fight at maximum efficiency. So this is all kind of the basic level of combat and how you play the game. What else is there? It's not just, hey, point and click and fight. It's a little bit deeper than that. So I mentioned there are national morale centers, and those influence your country's morale. So if we go back over here, we highlight over Germany, you'll see national morale is currently 99%. Out of a maximum of 150,000. That will drop as a result of casualties or events that occur. So if we take a national morale objective, Warsaw for example, that can actually increase our national morale. Meanwhile, on Poland's end, that can decrease their national morale if they lose Warsaw, because that's a critical objective for them. Actually, I think Poland just auto-surrenders if they lose Warsaw. But it can also affect the Western Allies. So France and England can be discouraged if a national morale side on the Allies is lost. And national morale is important. So if we click on this Reports tab, you can go and you can see what a country's, let's see here, graphs. So if we go to national morale, for example, you can see you want to have high national morale. If it drops too far, that can have negative impacts on your ability to fight effectively, and eventually it can force you out of the war. So you can see if we go to Poland, their national morale is falling a bit because, again, we've successfully destroyed a few of their units, and casualties influence national morale. But so do spots on the map. So Warsaw influences Poland's national morale. Danzig influences, I believe, Germany's national morale. Also would influence the Allies, but the free city of Danzig is now under control of the Germans, so that's good for us. In addition to that, let's see here. You can also do a lot more in terms of fighting. So you can point and you can click. You know, we can go down here. We click on a unit if we wanted to, and we could attack the, well, we can't attack the French yet because we're not at war with them. But you can, you know, move around and attack and fight and all of that. Great. But there's also supply lines. So the game has a supply feature, where if you click on this, it'll show you the supply available in a given hex. But it also has convoy lines. So we've already mentioned the fact that you get income every turn. You get these 50 MPPs that Germany has right now, and every other turn you'll gain more income. One way you can disrupt that income is by disrupting convoys. So I think the best way to look at that is we're going to click on this tab up here called War Maps. If we do that, we'll see a map of all the countries at war, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you look at this Convoy Map tab, you'll see there are these different lines that move across the ocean, and convoys are important, not just to Britain, but also to Germany. So Germany depends heavily on these Scandinavian countries to receive raw materials from. They need iron ore and other, you know, resources. These little blue lines represent active convoy routes that Germany has with Sweden and with Norway. If the British put forces along these routes, I believe they can also use air units to strike along these routes, they can disrupt German convoys, which can influence the income. We can show you in a minute when we go through the end turn screen how your income shows up every turn, and it shows you what part of that income is a result of convoys. And if you disrupt these convoys, you can influence the enemy's income. Well, Britain is sort of the stereotypical example of that because they are the, you know, the island empire with a empire that spans the globe, and that's what these convoy routes represent. So you've got one to the Middle East, you've got one kind of toward like South America, the rest of the British Empire, you've got one toward like the Caribbean, but maybe even the Pacific because it could go out here toward the Panama Canal, and you've got one to Canada and one to Russia. So the one to Russia only initiates or only becomes active when the British end up, you know, getting the Russians on their side as allies. This will turn red when this convoy route is active. If it's white, it means it's there, but it's not really something you can target because there aren't convoys going that way because you're not, that country isn't sending convoys to England. So England gets it gets an income boost from Canada's convoys, which allows it to spend more money and purchase more units, which we'll get to in a little bit. But these other convoy routes are active, these red-lined convoy routes. And if you put naval units or air units astride them, you can actually influence England's income. So we're going to go up here. You can see here we've got a heavy cruiser, which we're going to sail south toward this convoy route. We'll go ahead and right-click. And you'll see with any unit, when you right-click it, you get various options: reinforce, elite, upgrade, rename, properties. But for naval units and air units, there is a convoy mode. In this case, we're going to set it to raider, and you can see this little blue icon shows up, which is telling us that this ship is now raiding enemy commerce. Now, I mentioned that these convoy routes turn red when they're active and white when they're not. This one is to Canada. This convoy route is to Canada. So right now, this convoy route is not active because Canada and England are not at war with Great Britain. However, that will change literally at the end of this turn. So I'm going to put both my submarine and my cruiser astride this convoy route to give me the best possible chance to intercept convoys going this way and disrupt England's income. Now, again, this is going to go active this turn, so I'll have a chance to intercept it. It's not always efficient to have multiple units along the same convoy route. You don't always intercept, I believe, enemy units when you have a ship along their convoy route. But typically you don't intercept or influence it doubly. There's kind of a maximum impact you can have. But what I'm doing here is I'll set these guys here, so one of them will intercept the convoy route, and then next turn I'll move someone south toward this British Empire convoy route because they'll be able to get there after this next turn. And then I'll be able to disrupt two of England's vital convoys. Again, England has quite a few of them, so it's very difficult to choke off the flow of supply to England. And I don't know what their income is because I haven't played as England, but if the game models it right, a large percentage of their income should really go toward, should come from these routes. When Germany ends up, becoming friends with Russia after the invasion of Poland, they get a little bit of an income boost as well to represent trade with Russia. I assume when Russia becomes an ally, this convoy route gives Russia some additional income, trade income, which is modeled there. The War Maps tab has some other information on it. So right now, this is a map of Europe. You'll notice there are some blue circles and there are some red circles. The blue circles represent Axis countries, or countries that are leaning toward the Axis. So you can see here actually quite a bit of Europe is leaning toward the Axis. So if we click on Germany, you can see obviously this is 100% Axis. If we click on Italy, they're only 65%, but they're already part of the Central Powers, so they're under our control. But you can see here that there are these blue countries and these red countries. And then there's a green country. You'll notice that's Poland. What that means is Germany is at war with Poland, therefore their country flag goes away and is replaced with a tank. When France and England join the war, when France and England join the war, you'll see these icons change to tanks. And if you declare war on any other country, the same thing happens. This is just representing that they're at war with your side. Otherwise, you can click on this percentage button and it'll show you their political affiliation. We'll get more to this on the diplomacy screen, but basically Slovakia is 100% Axis. They're actually part of the Axis alliance already. Yugoslavia, on the other hand, is leaning Axis. There's 45% Axis, but they're not yet formally allied to us. You'll see the United States is 22% allied, and they've got this red circle, so that represents that they're on the allied side. And then you've got Canada, and you've got other countries as well, and you can zoom in on the map as well if you want a better look at things. But essentially, this all represents where a country is aligned politically, and that can change with diplomacy, which we'll get to in a little bit. You can declare war on this screen. So if we click on France, for example, and we click declare war, we can go ahead and declare war on France, but we're not going to do that right now. And then these guys would change to a tank, and their red circle would go away. They'd go to 100% allies, which they already are, but they'll be at war with us next turn. And that's kind of the map. If we click on Italy, you can see Italy has diplomacy as well, I guess. But I don't really understand the difference in... So Italy is... the only thing this shows is that Italy's not at war with Poland. Poland is 100% behind the Allies, but currently Italy's not at war with anyone. And that's the war map screen. There's a purchase screen, which obviously you can go ahead and you can buy new units. So I've already mentioned that HQs are kind of important to allowing a unit to be effectively fighting, and you've got different names to set it to, and you've got a price. So with any unit, you can see here, for example, garrisons, they cost 50 MPP, and you can have up to 24 more of them. So if I purchase a unit, this number will drop, and then I won't be able to purchase quite as many more. And I believe the amount you can actually recruit also depends on your mobilization level and your morale, but I'm just making some assumptions there. I could be wrong. You'll also notice that you can choose between countries that you want to build for. So Italy, this is what Italy can build. Germany, this is what Germany can build. And that has to do with the country's technological development. But there are also things that aren't available quite yet. So heavy tanks, for example, that's something Germany can build technologically speaking, but won't be able to build until December of 1941. But otherwise, here are the different things you can build. You click on it, you get the price, and you know, that's what you have to spend in order to build something, as well as the limit. And there's a production timetable as well. So when you build something, it's not ready immediately. Also, you get some information on the right side here about the unit. But then when you build something, it's not ready immediately. We can click on this production tab and we can see what's going to be ready when. So we've got a headquarters unit that'll be ready in September of 1940. We've got paratroopers that'll be ready in January of 1940. A battleship that'll be ready in February of 1941, and all these different, you know, things that are already in the production timetable. If we build something new, it will show up here based on when it's ready to be completed. And Italy has the same thing. We click on Italy, we see their production timetable as well. I don't know what the new units tab is. I've never had to use that yet. I've only gotten into like December of 1939, so I'm not quite sure what that tab is for. I can't speak to it. But then there's the diplomacy tab, which allows you to assign diplomatic influence. So we've mentioned that Bulgaria is 80% or 70% access, and you can see here Hungary's 80% access. Well, if we want to make a country more aligned with us, we just click on it, and we can invest in diplomacy. You can see here this will cost 50 income to invest in a 5% chance of 5% swing in Bulgaria's alignment, and that's per turn. And the investment is once. So we've got 50 MPP. We can do that. We can go ahead and invest one. But one thing I'll call your attention to is the fact that up here you see influence remaining 5 chits. So if we click yes, you see we've invested 1 diplomacy, 50 MPP. You can see our income went away to 0. And you can see here there's now a 5% chance per turn of success of a 5% swing to the access to the Germans. You can also see that our influence remaining dropped to 4 chits, which basically means you have a limited amount of influence that you can wield on countries at a given time to represent your limited diplomatic influence. You know, money by itself doesn't necessarily buy diplomacy. And now we have no more money. It's also worth mentioning different countries are more or less expensive to try and, to wine and dine. So the United States and the USSR both cost 125 MPPs to try and swing. Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Denmark, Estonia. These countries all have more or less expensive influence. Really, it's just the U.S., Italy, and USSR from an Axis perspective that are expensive. And then you got, the different way that countries are leaning. So Canada is leaning 80% toward the Allies, toward the UK. Belgium is leaning nowhere. They're 0%. And just these different levels of influence. And that's really how simple diplomacy is. You can also go and declare war on a country if you want, but we're not going to do that right now. I know I'm getting a little bit long-winded, and we haven't really actually played much at all. But we'll go ahead up here. Research. Pretty simple, similar to diplomacy. You spend a certain amount of money. So right now we're funding research at 750 MPPs. We can do it up to 2,000 as Germany. Italy has different research trees. And essentially you just try and spend money in different areas to research them, and you get, different influences on your units. So if you research rocket artillery, you can build rocket weapons, and that gives you different units or different upgrades that you can have your units, be more effective perhaps. The table also gives you an overall summary, and it's just a level. So it's not you've researched X, Y, or Z. It's you've researched infantry weapons to level 1. Italy, you can see here, is further behind than Germany, but you get a summary of all your allies. So that's the research tab, and the reports tab is just kind of a graph of how things stand. So you can see your land power, your air power, your naval power. You can click on different countries to see what their industrial, maritime, oil, or mineral resources are, which are represented on the map. And then you can check on losses. You can see convoy losses, raiders, strategic bombing, research development, plunder, MPPs, national morale. All these other things I'm just going to kind of blaze through, but basically they're just giving you reports on, different sectors of the economy, and then you can also see losses as well as a detailed breakdown on losses per country. So all of this information is great, and it's really easily presented. But let's go ahead and before we end this video, let's actually play through and fight the rest of our turn. In the interest of time, I'm just going to play through it real quick, and then I'll kind of comment afterwards. Okay, so by the way, when you move forward, sometimes you can be in contact with enemy units, and they can attack you. So, like, if you move too far, too fast, fog of war does exist in the game where, I didn't see these units till I moved close to them. They didn't attack me, or at least they didn't influence, impact me with any damage, but they could have. And that's another thing you just want to keep in mind. Okay. You can see as you advance, your front line advances, and this color here is kind of indicating like, oh, here's where your front lines are. You've also got the national boundaries on here that'll change as you take different countries over. Polish cavalry is really easy to destroy, by the way. Lodz. We've taken Lodz and we're driving on Warsaw. You know what I didn't use is I didn't use my my Stukas to do anything. And you can see here, even though it's just Stuka, it's really just a tactical bomber section. So again, the units aren't terribly specific about what's fighting. You can see this looks like an armored unit, but it's actually just mechanized infantry. You can see here it says mechanized, and it's, could be armor, could be infantry, but it's not necessarily a tank. You can see here, these guys are our Slovak troops, so you can see Slovakia. The Woodrick Corps, there are one unit of minor allies, and minor allies just fight alongside the Germans as if they're part of Germany and are directly controlled by Germany. So I mentioned in the purchase screen, you can see here you can select a country you want to buy as. So Germany you can buy as, Slovakia you can buy as. They don't have anything you can purchase right now, but minor allies are controlled literally as if they're part of Germany. We're not going to attack there. So I think that, we'll attack these guys. So that about does it. One other thing I've already mentioned a few times, but if you right-click on a unit, you get some options. You can see here reinforce, elite upgrades, upgrade, blah, blah, blah. We have no money. We can't do any of that. But it gives you, just some information, and you can click on things to find out some information about the units. But basically, if you want some additional detail about a unit, just right-click on it, and it'll let you do that. So with all this being said, let's go ahead and end our first turn. We've pretty much done everything we need to do as Germany. We haven't done anything really as Italy. I guess we'll go ahead and do a real quick reinforcement. This is an armored unit, only a strength of 3, so we're going to right-click on it. We're going to reinforce it. You can see here it's 6 points per unit to reinforce. We have 80 income to spend. So, for example, one unit, that costs apparently 12 MPPs. Two costs 25, and it gives us a maximum up to 6 points of reinforcement. So we can reinforce it up to 90% strength. We'll do that and spend our money there. So we'll go ahead and move forward to the next turn. This little red arrow button up here symbolizes it. Currently it's September 1st, 1939. We'll click this button, and we will end our turn and advance to the next week. So in between turns, you get different updates that come up. So, for example, right here you can see Polish morale suffers from battlefield losses. Okay, that makes sense. From time to time, also, you get decisions you have to make from time to time. So you can see here, sometimes we've got to make some choices. So, for example, Lieutenant General Kurt Student's 7th Flieger Division is a partially formed and trained unit of paratroopers. Despite its incompleteness, it could be used in the later stages of the invasion of Poland or an early attack in France. Alternatively, we could allow it to complete its training and formation, in which case it will deploy at full strength at Hamburg at the end of the year. Would you therefore like to deploy the under-strength and only partially trained 7th Flieger Division at Breslau now, or let it complete its training so that it will deploy at full strength, ready for operations in 1940? So basically, this game, and I've noticed this seems to be a trend with a lot of Matrix games, gives you some decisions. You have to decide, do you want to upgrade it, or do you want to do yes or no? And it gives you some additional information if you click the notes. So, for example, if we want to bring it to full strength, we'll basically, we could hit yes, and then we'll get the unit, but it won't be at full 10 strength, is what it's saying. And that's represented, if you remember that production window when we saw we had an airborne unit that was going to be ready in January, that's this unit. So we can either get it early or not. I'm going to choose not to get it early and allow it to complete its training. You can see here different updates occur in the in-between turn phase. So the United Kingdom's declared war on Germany. France has also declared war on Germany. British industry and trade start switching to military production, so I assume that has something to do with the mobilization percentage. And then you've also got your income. So Germany collects 169 MPPs. That's what our direct German income is. But then we've also got those convoy routes I told you about. So we get 40 income from Norway, 28 from Sweden, and our total income is 237. Italy collects 69. There's no convoys they don't have to worry about. They could say there'd be convoys to North Africa, but there's no real income to calculate there. So that's kind of how the in-between turns phase and in-between turns work. The first turn tends to run a little bit slow. You can see down here in the lower left-hand corner, the Allies are processing and thinking about what they want to do. The Polish units are moving around and fighting, and you just kind of wait as these particular things occur. I know this video has been a little bit long already, so I'll probably cut it off as soon as this turn is over. But I think, you know, with this first 30-plus minutes of footage, I think you kind of get a sense of how the game works, you know, what's important, how you play the game, and kind of the overall enjoyment of the game. The game is very well done. Artistically, it looks like a crafted experience. It looks pretty, it looks easy on the eyes, looks like a very pretty map. I won't give an overall evaluation of the game. I generally don't do that to begin with, but I haven't gotten far enough into the game to really be able to say, hey, this is great, go out and buy it or not. I am going to continue playing the game, and I do enjoy it a lot. If you're a fan of the Strategic Command series, this looks like something that would probably be up your alley. Overall, I enjoyed my experience quite a bit. The sound effects are a little bit loud, but you can see here that Canada declares war on Germany, so now Canada is at war with Germany. Operation Peking, it's an update, an event. The British are attempting to evacuate Polish destroyers to the UK, so I assume that means they get like a Polish destroyer unit. And there you go. So this convoy route just changed to red because the Canadians declared war on Germany, which means convoys are now flowing from Canada to England, which gives them an income boost. But I had units astride that convoy route. So actually, we did have both of these units disrupt the convoys from Canada to the UK. The Deutschland, our cruiser, influenced 10 income lost, and the U-30 influenced 14 income lost. So the convoy route started, but they immediately started suffering losses on the British income. Meanwhile, you can see a summary of the activity. And you get some strategic advice as well between the turns. So beating the British, the Kriegsmarines confident with a protracted naval effort. The British Empire will bring about their eventual withdrawal from the war. So it kind of gives you an update, hey, send U-boats out to target convoy routes and mine the ports of Halifax and whatnot. In addition to that, you also get some strategic advice. So if you want to invade England, it's saying you're going to need to start planning to do it now. So it may only be September of 1939, but it's a strategy game. So you can't just flip a switch and, start an invasion without any preparation. It's saying some things you need to do to ensure a successful invasion. And this is kind of, imagine like a memo showing up on your strategic commander's desk and saying like, hey, sir, by the way, if you eventually want to invade England in 1940, you're going to need to invest in air power to knock the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy out. You're going to need to invest in amphibious warfare technology. You're going to need to prepare airborne forces so you can drop onto English soil in conjunction with an invasion. You're going to need to use the Kriegsmarine and U-boats to escort the invasion force, so don't throw away your entire navy and get it destroyed. You're going to need to secure ports so that supplies and reinforcements can be brought across the channel. You know, this would be a high-risk operation, likely to face stiff resistance while also awakening pro-war feeling in the US, USSR, both for which would be alarmed at the implication of a successful invasion of the UK, secret. So just kind of these interesting little memos that you get between turns or whatnot as things occur. And you can see here now that we've played through that first turn, you know, we can start moving and fighting again into turn 2, which I'm not going to cover in this video. You can see here that September 15th, 1939, so we've now updated that. And overall, you know, that's my first look, my first impressions. The game seems interesting, seems well done. We can go ahead and, one thing I will do before we end this video is I'll go ahead and reinforce these units. So you can see here we've got 237, that's our income, 14 to reinforce these guys. You could do elite reinforcements if these guys had some experience and you had some elite reinforcements you could give to them, but right now we don't have that, so we're just going to go ahead and bring these guys to full strength. You can also see here that the war, you start with a very weak western front as the Germans. We could strengthen that, so one other thing I didn't touch on, if we right click on a unit, that's, I believe it has to be along a rail line. We can click operate, and we can spend money to operationally move this unit, which would basically allow us to transport via rail troops across the country and drop them anywhere along a rail line to represent kind of an immediate strategic movement. However, that is not something we want to do until Poland is more easily dealt with. I'm trusting that France won't launch an ambitious attack across against us, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you liked my first look at this game. It's been a lot of fun so far, but I'm just getting into it, and I do intend to start a new series based off of this play. Maybe through live streams. It may just be me playing on my own and talking and then kind of sharing it with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and save this. This is from my live stream last night, in which I played for about an hour and didn't do very well. We're going to go ahead and go from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.